Hey, welcome everyone. This is Chuck Hogan and Veenu Keller with Live Now. Welcome to the Spanish World Network on Zingo TV on channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is completely free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, also on Roku and Roku sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 forward. So thank you for joining us tonight. Veenu and I have had a blast coming up with all the different topics that we have been going over for the last several weeks. And Veenu, wouldn't you say that there's been this level of, ironically, congruency to all of the information that we've been reviewing and a level of authenticity that goes along with the type of discussions that we've been having over the last several weeks?
Absolutely, Chuck. I think it was interesting that when we came together with this idea of what's it like to live now in our lives, together and looking at not living in the past, moving forward and what all that looks like and coming up with these topics. And, I remember getting off the show and I was like texting, I'm like, brother, that was amazing. Like we were just in flow, like everything just keeps stacking on stacking on stacking. And which is why we're here today to talk about that whole congruency and authenticity and what it really looks like when you are congruent in the way that you live and what happens and what it costs you when you're not. And let's just start off the discussion this way. One of the things that I love that you've said to me, and I actually learned this from you about a month ago when we were talking about the life wheel and this and that. And I was like, there's always that balance. And you said, well, does it have to be a balance or can we find the harmony?
Yes.
And it really sparked that in me because when I researched it more, you're absolutely right. When we are focusing on just one thing, we're never going to be in balance because then we're focusing on that and then the other thing goes out of balance. And then we're going to focus on that and then that goes out of balance. We're constantly kind of like going after these shiny pennies, right? To try to stay balanced. But if we really look at who are we, going back to our identity that we talked about last week.
Yes.
What do we need to do to live that in our with authenticity? And that was a mouthful. And staying fully congruent to who we really are, regardless if we're the mom, we're the board member, we're the lover in the bedroom, but staying congruent with that person.
Yes. No, it's you're absolutely right. It's kind of funny. I look at music a lot. Anyone who knows me knows, oh, music. And it really is about harmony. No one ever says, oh, find the balance in the music. Change the balance in the music. They go, no, find the harmony in the music. Find the melody, find the flow in it. And that's really what life is about. Life is about flowing. It's about being in a space where all those different modalities and personalities get to culminate. You and I talk about this a lot. We talk about it's never just about the one thing. It's about everything. There's never just one thing that is the linchpin on how that's going to affect your life. It's never about the one thing that is just going to shift everything. And they go, but could it? And I said, yes. Authenticity could be the one thing because it's if you want to call it contextual, it falls across every single boundary of every identity you ever have. And when people are authentic in that moment, that congruency that's necessary in the moment comes up.
Absolutely. I think though, Chuck, we really maybe need to back up because I know a lot of people don't even understand the word authenticity.
Yes.
They don't know what it's like to be authentic. I cannot say that word today.
It's okay.
It's the word of the night. I can't say it. So I'm just curious, like, what do you feel being authentic is? What does authenticity mean to you?
It's actually a very simple concept and it has to do with being present. It's when we're living outside of a moment, when we're living outside of a space or a grace or our own being, and being present within self is paramount. That is true authenticity. That doesn't mean, and this is really important to note, that it's always positive. It doesn't mean that. And people go, oh, I was being authentic. And I go, okay. And yet you still said some hurtful things. You still were not quite yourself. You were still kind of berating or pushing or, really making your point well known, but you were authentic. You felt in that moment it was necessary to speak your truth. Well, that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that you say it with no regret. You say it because it's really a real thing necessary now.
Right.
That's
Right.
authenticity.
So I believe along the same lines, authenticity to me is being true to what your values are, being true to what your rules to your values are. It's not living by everyone else's definition to be that chameleon so you can fit in. It's not worrying what other people think
Yes.
in their opinions, that you still have your drive, you still have who you are. Because not everyone, it's interesting because I don't know, do we have 8 billion people in the world now? Who knows? But 7.2 billion, whatever it is, it was a fact to me that not everyone was going to like me. It was really hard for me to swallow too. Like I
Sure.
really wanted everyone in this world to like me. I wanted the 7.2 billion people or 9 billion people, however many billion people on the earth, they were going to like me. So what had to happen for everyone to like me? I had to find out what were your rules, what were your values, and then I would be congruent with your rules and values.
Right.
And then I would turn the page and go somewhere else. And then I would meet someone else who had different rules and values, and I'd be congruent with their rules and values. And then I would turn the page again that same day. And then I'm wondering why I'm exhausted. And then I'm
This,
wondering why, who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore because I'm so busy trying to be congruent with your rules and your values and everyone else's because I was so worried that people wouldn't like me if I could really be me.
so this is a great validation. I'm so glad you brought up this point. There's a difference between finding continuity with someone else and finding congruency with them.
Yes.
Congruency comes when we're in an authentic state. Continuity comes when we're measuring and we drop into one of three levels: givers, matchers, or takers. And the interesting thing about that paradox is that it's situational specific again. So I had a conversation, a deep conversation with a friend of mine today, and he's been in this very strong relationship over the last several months. And he goes, we're matched. We're great matchers. He goes, at least I thought so till last night.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, interesting. I said, please, pray tell, what was going on? He goes, well, when it's just us together and we're in that energetic state, we are matchers. And there, it's give and take, and we're 100% all in. He goes, I saw a different side of this person last night. I offered a different set of optics. And she immediately put her hand up and said, no, 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 no. You don't understand me. And I was like, oh, okay, what shifted? And he goes, I don't know. He goes, I was giving the same way I always give. And I said, yes, in a different context for her. And so in the moment, it felt inauthentic to her identity, what you were sharing. It's not that it was wrong. It was just that it was a matter of situation. And in that moment, it didn't coincide with what her needs were. So now she went back to what she has been being in the relationship, which is a taker, and you've been a giver. And why do I know this? Because I know you. And he goes, oh my gosh. And I thought we were matching. No. And this is how he figured it out. He's been calling her and making the connection. And when he connects, then she'll respond. So she's a taker that has a conditional response to when he's giving. He decided that after their last encounter, he was going to give her time. And he was going to wait for her to contact him. And a couple of days went by. And her comment was, I really miss speaking to you every day. Why have you not been calling? And he said, well, frankly, I'm not testing, but I just was curious to see if our conversations were as important to you as they have been to me.
Mm.
And she goes, well, I hope you start calling more. And he goes, I like that you're calling me too. So it opened up a new line of dialogue, to your point, about an authentic level of communication and not just one of convenience.
Right.
Because here's where reality set in with congruency. They are states apart. So it's a 3-hour plane flight either way. So they really only see each other when he flies in. Well, when you have, as you know this, being married to Brian, when you have proximity and continuity, there's power in that relationship because you get to see all the nuances, all the craziness, all the little stuff that becomes big stuff, and awkwardness, and also I'll say connection as well. But when you're further apart and you're only seeing each other once every couple weeks or couple months, it protracts and prolongs the relationship and the learning cycle because you don't have the proximity. So now all the little things start to become big things as well.
Yes. I think one of the key points that you just brought up, though, also is honesty. I think
Oh,
honesty goes hand in hand with authenticity, is that,
yes.
when I say something, I mean that. If
Hmm.
I say that my husband's my one and only, I mean he's my one and only. There is no other, emotional relationship. There is no other love relationship. I can have different friendships that
Sure.
I enjoy, but it's so open because the authenticity that I have within myself, that I have in the relationship, is created by my rules of honesty. So again, what's our rules with authenticity? For me, it's definitely honesty.
Hmm.
It's being trustworthy. It's knowing that we can trust each other. And I think that also comes with the whole matching. When you guys match, do you match on the same trust? Do you match on the same honesty? Do you match on the same level? Are you helping each other grow? Or is one sucking the other one's emotions out like an emotional vampire,
Yep.
and the other person gets the significance because they think that that person needs it and wants it, and so all of a sudden we feel needed and wanted, the person
Sure.
that's constantly giving. So then we have to check ourselves and we have to really go back into what's our truth.
Yes. It's really the question of what's real.
Mm,
And what's real is your perspective. What's real is your reality. Perspective is your reality in the moment. And this is where being truthful, honest, integrous with yourself and then with others is so imperative. Because if we go into that inquisitive or pleaser mode, now it's not that you're being inauthentic, you're being very caring and loving. The challenge is that it's not a we relationship, it's actually more of a me relationship. Because if I'm not feeling good about us or I'm not feeling good about me, it becomes extremely challenging to feel good about we.
Well, and this is where it costs you when you're not
Yes.
living in your authentic life, in your being congruent in what your values are, being congruent, meaning that you're living within the alignment of what your values and rules are, is that in your mind, you want everyone to know that this is how I feel, this is who I am.
Yes.
But what you're really living is a double life
Oh,
because you're feeling something else and you're being fulfilled on a different level somewhere else, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a business. I'm not just talking relationships, I'm talking about everything.
oh,
Like, sometimes, even now, I will get so involved in my work
yes.
because I love what I do. And there's times that I have clients that can be a bit demanding in that moment,
Yes.
and I've always opened that to my clients, though. I've always, because I work with humans, I don't work with a computer that I can shut off. When
Exactly.
things happen that they do on the weekends, I am there for them. And at
Yes.
times, I can see my family feeling pushed aside because I'm putting them here for
Yes.
my clients. And so again, in my mind, I'm staying congruent to who I am in my business, but then I've lacked the congruency in my family because I did say my weekends are my family's. Like I had to draw a line in the sand.
Yes. And if you don't schedule it, you won't honor it. Number
Correct.
one. Number two, Julie and I have gotten into this habit now where we have such a clear level of communication that I'll ask permission. If someone calls in and I'll put them on mute for a moment, said, "Hey, can I have just a few moments?" And I'll check in with Julie and say, "Hey, I need 5 minutes. Is that okay?" Because I'm with
And listen
her.
with me, Chuck, because then we go for hours.
No, well, listen, I know my limitations, and you're my kryptonite. I love you. You're my sister for another mister. And when we get on a roll, it's frightening and beautiful at the same time. The stuff we come up with, mind blowing. And so, but in instances, so I had that happen today, and I said, "Hey, Rich, I've got 5 minutes. I love you. I apologize. Is this really important?" He goes, "No, I just want to share something with you real quick." And he did, and I said, "Brother, thank you. That enhanced my life today. I love listening to you. I love connecting with you. I got to go. Have a blessed and beautiful day. I hope you had a good, great Easter." Boom, done. And it was great because Julie goes, "You served him at the highest level for the 5 minutes that you gave him. and what he
Mm-hmm.
gave him what he needed, which was connection in the moment, and you honored me. And it was like, ooh, that feels really good. That felt authentic. And it doesn't mean it's always convenient. Authenticity is not convenient, y'all. If you take anything away from this today, just know that doing the right thing is the best thing. Being the best you will allow you to do the right thing way more often. And it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's easy. It
Right.
means that you will feel more connected to self and to others when you are actually speaking your truth. And that doesn't mean having to be rude or disconcerting or berating or judgmental. It literally means being congruent with your values that make you uniquely you. And that
Absolutely.
is imperative, imperative. Because when you go against your own values and rules, trust me, you'll feel it. And it's painful. It
It
really
is.
is.
So how do we help our listeners who are listening to this
Mm.
saying, wow, like this is really good stuff. And this is why I've been feeling this way. I've been living, let's just call it two lives, right? We've been
Yes.
living two lives, whether it's a friendship that may have gone a little deeper than it needed to. Maybe it's a business that's gone deeper, anything to take you away from what you're focused on right now.
Mm.
Okay. So so we don't have to label it. Let's
Right.
just say something is taking you off the beaten path and you do not feel congruent in your life,
Right.
that you feel there's some dishonesty going on and you don't know how to let it go. How do we teach our listeners how to get back on track? Because just because you're incongruent today or you're incongruent yesterday, remember yesterday's history.
History. Tomorrow's a mystery.
History. So if we wanted to really delve into this and
Yes.
really make see, that's the beauty is every minute we have a new opportunity to do something different. And so
You do. And there's a universal question. Authenticity. So let's go back for a moment. How do you know you're being congruent with your values?
well, for me, I feel good with it. I don't question
Aha.
my choices. I don't question, you know, I can make a choice, say, and it was fully aligned with what I believed in.
Yes.
And my intention was right, but my action was not so much.
Right.
But I still feel great in what I did. I still feel great in going back to that person or my kids or whatever and saying, here, my intention was great. My delivery sucked.
Yes.
and but I don't feel guilt with it because I stayed really congruent with what I believed in that moment for me.
Yes. So ownership and accountability are two huge facets of congruency. And people go, well, okay, what do you mean by that? I said, own the fact that you have a strong moral compass. Own the fact that you have a light heart right now. And the information that you gave was the best resources you had available in the moment. And that if you're looking to elevate yourself or others, that a part of this is that we get to live in that grace in that space. And it all comes back down to the one thing you and I speak about every single week, and that is feelings. How are you feeling? And in fact, we're going to benchmark this with something because there's power in language, words are currency. It's how you need to feel by comparison to how you want to feel.
Mm,
So, why? When we get triggered into pain, the immediate response for most people is, I just want to move towards feeling better. I go, oh, so it's an alternative currency to what you're feeling now. And they're like, oh, and yeah, I'm over here, I'm losing, over here, I'm winning. And I go, is that really the truth? Is it really the truth? Because the lesson that you're getting is priceless right now. So if I were to put a value on it, I go, ooh, I don't know. I actually think that you going through these trials and tribulations is helping you stretch and flex and grow. And it's actually helping you find your true congruency. Ah, because how do you know pain and pleasure? Well, you know pleasure because you've experienced pain.
correct.
Because if
Correct.
all you ever knew was pleasure,
And that's where, even now, we're in a stage because the twins are going to be 11 in just a couple months. And we're really in our household creating ownership
mm-hmm,
where Brian and I are even role modeling that more is like, where's our ownership? Like,
Yep.
do we need to be right in this moment? Do we need control in this moment? And we're practicing this in front of our kids because we want
Yep.
them to see that even we, when we get in an argument, it's okay, who wants the certainty right now? Who wants the control right now? And
Right.
I will literally say, okay, Brian, you can have control. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, I don't want control. I'm like, well, I don't want control. And then it turns into a playful thing now,
Sure.
you know? And so what are we role modeling for the kids? Because if we're not going to take ownership as adults and model that for them, how are we having any type of expectations and teaching them to take ownership? And part of being congruent, part of being authentic
Mhm.
is like our viewer was saying, is like self-evaluation is so important.
Yes.
You got to self-evaluate. Where are you at? What do you believe? And how true is it?
So this is critical. This is critical. Measuring is different than judging.
Ah,
And so
absolutely.
in evaluation, it is so imperative to adopt a appreciative eye ideology where it's like, okay, I'm measuring because you can't change what you can't measure. If it's not moving, then it's just in stasis. It is. They go, oh, but isn't that, fifth level of existence where, you're in that fifth dimension and you're just being one with everything? And I go, okay.
Right.
Um, for some people they call that death because your energy has been dispersed to the universe but your physical body isn't here. And I said, how much
Mhm.
emotion and feeling are you experiencing at that time? I said, because you're not cognizant at that point. You've moved beyond this physical body. So let's get back to earth for a moment because I still have, let's see, I'm 56. So yeah, about another 100 years left in me with science and everything else. It may be my head in a jar and they just capture my intelligence, whatever, left of it at that point, but I'm still going to be around. And so here's the ticket. Measuring means that we actually appreciate where we're at. It's not a comparison, it's not a judgment. That's when we start to get down the rabbit hole. Because now we're like, oh, well, compared to these other people, I've been doing it longer than they have. I should be more elevated. I should be beyond them. And I'm like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
That's what we said last week. Comparison's going to steal every dream you have, every ambition you have,
Absolutely.
every opportunity you have will be taken by comparison.
Yes.
The joy of life is taken by comparison.
And judgment is the prosecutor. It's the one that puts, it's the one that levies the fine, the sentence, the punishment. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So if I give you an example, we'll just say it was a beautiful day here in Texas today, probably about 78, just pristine, nice breeze, little cloud cover every now and then, cooled things off, amazing. Now, if I was in Great Britain, they'd be asking me for the same degrees in Celsius. And if I don't know that conversion in the language, in the understanding, in the relationship, I'd say 78 degrees. And I'm going, are you on the surface of the sun? That's like 212 degrees or something like that. And I'm probably screwing that up as well, but I think it's like a 3 degrees per. Anyway, my point in being is, and then if they go, oh yeah, it was amazing. It was 16 degrees here. And you're like going, wait, what? Wow. But you're wearing a short sleeve shirt. How can it be 16 degrees? Why am I saying this? The measurements can be different.
Right.
But I'm not judging what you're saying. You're not judging me. This opens up a line of dialogue. You go, was it a beautiful day? Yes, it was a beautiful day. We can find languaging that compels and competes, that, doesn't compete, that actually conjoins and creates that congruency that we were talking about. Where now it's like, we're saying both, it was a beautiful day. Oh my gosh, if every day was like this, it would be a drop dead gorgeous day.
We'll even take it one step further. Your beautiful day cannot be a beautiful day to me.
Absolutely.
Like if I am somebody who really enjoys rainy days and cold rainy days
Absolutely.
because it makes me feel cozy, it makes me feel connected, it
Yes.
makes me feel all warm and fuzzy, it makes me feel really loved in that moment because everyone's in home, we're spending time with each other, we can't really go anywhere, so we get creative, we have fun together, and so those
Absolutely.
are my best days ever. While my husband, who is an outside person who likes to walk barefoot and take care of the chickens outside, he does not so much enjoy the rainy days. Like he
No.
wants the sun is shining, it's beautiful, the wind is blowing, kind of like how you just described Texas, right? So again, we all have different definitions of what we see as beauty and
Yes.
what we see is our path, if you would.
And you put you hit the nail on the head. Authenticity is personalized,
Yes,
and
100%.
it is 100% your experience. And your authenticity is your truth. It is your feelings and emotions. It's your connection to self and the universe. And so there's three things that people can do. And we've talked about this. And it's actually eerily, it's the same formula to find your truth and your authenticity. One, you need to ask yourself how you're feeling now. And I know we go back to this often, but everything starts with your why. And your why is uniquely you. Truthfully, your you is how you feel most often. And it's not the how you feel most often that you want to feel, it's how you need to feel. If that's connected, loving, congruent, honest, integrous, whole, adventurous, variety. Some people go, oh, I get bored real easy if I'm just doing the same thing. I need to be happy, sad. I like variety in my emotions as well. It's like, okay, I know I have more than one personality stuffed in this body. I don't want to guess how many other people have. But when the 12 voices in my head stop chattering, I know something's wrong. And it's like, because why? Different situations require different parts of us.
Right.
Even the nervous parts of you, even the sad parts of you, even the disappointed or the procrastination parts of you. Sometimes slowing down is not bad. And
And
people go, oh, go ahead. Yes, Veenu.
well, I was just going to say on that, like the what I need to feel and what I want to feel sometimes can be two different things, and it's a great place to check in with yourself.
Yes.
And if I need to feel this way, but I want to feel that way, what has to shift in your life? What has to change right now in that moment
Yes.
to get that want to be congruent with what the need is in that moment?
So here's what authenticity is. When how you need to feel and how you want to feel are actually in congruency.
Correct.
You're not fighting one another or two ships crossing in the night. It's like, oh, wait a second. I need to feel valued. You know what? I felt productive today. Well, value and productive feel very congruent. They're kind of sister relationships, if you will. And I go, that sisterhood, that brotherhood, ooh, we're heading the right direction.
Right.
So let's start with how we need to feel. The second part is what direction, other words, what's the meaning I'm giving to feeling this way? And it's like, wow, that felt really great. I'm really happy. Or, wow, that really sucked. I'm really sad. And sometimes you're just okay. And it's
Or
like,
that feel good, right? If it didn't feel good. And this is where it goes back to that whole self-evaluation.
yes.
We get so caught up in everyday life that we're not even checking in with ourselves throughout the day. I don't know, before I got into personal development, I don't think I ever checked in with how did I feel in the morning? How
Sure.
do I feel in the afternoon? How do I feel at night? I feel like a robot. I think I really was just a robot going through life. And that's probably why I never had any growth, because there was no measurement. There was nothing to ever say, how does this feel?
Right.
What got me here? And if I want to feel this, what can take me there? And so I think it's just very imperative that we're teaching our audience this, because a lot of us that are not in this whole personal growth, that's constantly looking at how I can grow and hungry to grow, it's time we start looking at what could you do differently.
Critical. And so your doings are based on your being. So who do you need to be? What part of you do you need to be? More understanding, more gracious, maybe more relaxed, maybe less pensive, maybe more directed, maybe more committal. Ooh, there's a lot of people who are living in limbo and they go, oh, well, I'm just going to try out a bunch of different things. And I go, wow, anytime you've tried something, did you excel automatically where you're just like, oh, yeah, I tried it once. Awesome. I was amazing. Okay, apparently you haven't taken up golf then. Because I'm here to tell you, with a last name like Hogan, everyone thinks you should be able to hit the crud out of the ball every single time. If you're in Australia, they expect you to be funny like Paul Hogan and be able to hit the golf ball. And so one of the things that's really interesting is there's other people's expectations and then there's yours. Because you were a god one day on the course. You're like, oh my gosh, I whacked the crud out of that ball and I did it for 18 holes.
And that to me is another critical part. We keep bringing up these critical parts, but they're all so important.
They're all little
expectations. The expectations.
Oh.
You know, when you have your expectations and your kids have their expectations,
yes.
and your spouse have their expectations, and then your business partner has their expectations, you feel tired sometimes, Chuck.
You know,
Really
the
do.
mind is it's like the distribution hub, the network of the soul. And it will come up and conjure all these different personalities that are residing in this one body. I go, how many hats can you wear at one time? If it's the mama hat, if it's the business hat, if it's the connector hat, if it's the educator hat, if it's the mentor hat, if it's the loving spouse hat, if it's the religious and spiritual, I'm like, I can go on and on and on. And at some point in time, you're going, the answer is yes. We're all those things. What makes the difference? Environment, timing, intention. Who do we need to be in the moment? Because you have all these resources within you. I do not need to be as powerful as Samson if I'm baking cookies with my daughter. I do not have to have the intelligence of a supercomputer if I'm in a conversation about love with my son over a relationship. I do not need to be, a miser or someone who's berating and rude when you're coaching someone on how to kick a soccer ball. Timing and patience and presence becomes a huge part of this. Because the number one thing, and this is where authenticity has the most power, you resonate at a frequency when you're living in an authentic state. And the beauty is that the opportunity and the blessing and the gift of living now, live now, is that it's a present, it's a gift. When we commit ourselves to giving ourselves, when you're inauthentic, you're not giving yourself, you're giving a proxy, you're giving some other modality if you're modeling someone else.
Well, and that's why I think,
and it may not be.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, please, after you.
I was saying that, and that's why it was so important to think about what we talked about last week is the identity. You can't be authentic. You cannot be congruent when you do not know who you are. When you are living under everyone else's expectations of who you need to be. When you are thinking you need to be something different in order for people to like you or to be respected or to get the job, instead of just realizing, like at first, to me, if you're going to live an authentic life, the first thing you need to do is be true to yourself. That is accept who you are, the good, the bad, the ugly, accept it, all the little pieces in there, because you wouldn't know how good you are if you were never bad. Right.
And you couldn't appreciate the growth, the progress, the possibilities. Those that judge themselves, they kill all the possibilities in their life.
Absolutely.
Because they're putting themselves in this bubble where there's no winning. In fact, there's no losing. There's nothing. Most people that start to live in this bubble of stasis, because they have this self-fulfilling prophecy in their own head. It's not in their heart, it's in their head. That I'm not good enough. I'll never have the skill set. And so why should I even try? Why should I put myself out there? There's no opportunities for me. And it's like, ooh, wow, that's really harsh.
And that's a great question, the whole I'm not good enough, because we've heard so many times, and we even talked about this last week, is that, I'm not good enough is a universal fear in life, not being good enough. And all that means is that I'm not able to fulfill an expectation an opportunity, a relationship. If I like a guy and he does not like me back, I'll say, well, I wasn't good enough. Well, you are good enough, but you were not able to fulfill his expectations of what he was looking for. That does not make you good or bad. It just means that you were not going to fulfill him. And wouldn't you rather find that out now than get in a
Oh,
relationship? He cheats on you because he's trying to be fulfilled in other areas that you were not able to. And to be honest, I don't want that. I rather a
no.
guy say, I liked you, we had some good times, and we're just not, we're not going to fulfill each other.
Well, it
You
goes
know,
back to what you were saying about the honesty, that
yes,
unbridled honesty. It's like people get into relationships so often, and this is not just personal, this is business relationships as well.
yeah,
And they don't espouse what's necessary for them. They don't, that goes, what's necessary even goes beyond needs.
mhm.
Like, what I need is this. What's necessary? I mean, that is like a line drawn in the sand. This is no, I cannot live without this.
Mhm.
And when we get clarity and when we share in that vision, that's what actually helps people understand what creates congruency for us. Because congruency actually comes from the rules that go along with the authenticity that we need.
I was just going to say that when we talk about, you know, the how to get that
Yes.
need, when you said, it has to be done this way, those are rules of the how the certainty needs to be met in me. You know, if I need certainty, I don't want to have to argue for it. I don't want to have to fight for it. That does not feel good to me.
No.
And so when you're finding yourself in that, you have to start to look at what is really important. What is the real need in that moment? And I'm going to tell you,
Absolutely.
for a lot of women, it's the safety. We want to
Sure.
feel safe. And when we go into that, men out there listening, when we go into that argument, when we go into that yelling and you don't get it, you don't understand, what we're saying is, I'm hurting right now. I don't feel safe right now. And
Right.
my masculine has to come out to save me right now because I'm not feeling safe in the situation. I'm not having enough certainty that I'm going to be safe in the situation. And so, again, if you're going to be authentic, us women also have to learn how to communicate and actually say that because men are not mind readers.
Yes. And there's this level of fear that I'm perceived as being weak if I say that I'm scared.
Mm,
And that's part of it. And that swings both ways for masculine and feminine.
yeah, it does.
When's masculine allowed to say that they're scared? That's not what people are looking for. That's not what they desire. And when in a relationship, especially, you can express that level of vulnerability, it actually brings you closer
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
you have strengths in different areas. The maternal, the omega, is so mama bear and so powerful. And yet, omega can only come out when it feels certain and secure. For the alpha, alpha comes out when it feels needed. And so, what's happened in a lot of relationships, the authenticity has gone away because the woman's like going, I don't need a man.
Yep.
I don't need a man. I don't need to appreciate you. You can earn me if that's what you feel you're man enough to do. Yet, when a man tries to be expressive in that level of certainty, and sometimes they're less than graceful about it, then they come across as being, oh, well, he's so he-man, he's so bulkish, he's so, he's so assertive. I don't need someone control. And then we use these terms. I don't need someone controlling me.
Right.
And it's like, oh, where'd that judgment come from? Where's that rule tied to? It's like he offered you to buy you dinner. He opened the door for you. He slid your seat in for you. So he showed care and concern for your well-being. He gave you his jacket because he felt it was a little chilly. He offered it to you. That is not weakness. That is an opportunity to share chivalry. And yet it has become a lost art in some ways, where that level of authenticity or that kind of culture is frowned upon and gone, I don't need that. It's kind of like the person that goes, I don't need to dress up.
Well, that goes back to this whole conversation of congruency and authenticity. I think a lot of it has to do with how we were raised in
Yes.
generation. Growing up in the Gen X, us girls were being taught you don't need a man, that women can do it, right? Like women are at work now, women can
Yeah.
do what they can do. We got women joining the military now. It's like that whole movement started happening. And so we were growing up, like I remember being told, you don't need a man. You don't
Yeah.
need a man. You don't need a man. And then I was wondering why the guys I would date were very feminine guys. And then after a couple weeks, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of done with this. Like, not
Pleasers.
not my guy anymore. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, she's too strong for a guy. And then that came into my head, that I was too strong for a guy, that I was never going to find a guy because I was too strong. I was
Right.
overpowering. And I was like, oh gosh, am I? Because I'm looking at myself as a feminine girl, not knowing that there was a lot of masculine traits coming out. And here's the other thing. I was a single mom. I was running a business.
Yep.
There were so many masculine traits that I lived every single day. So what you practice and practice and practice is what becomes second nature behavior.
And
until until you start to realize that you're not congruent with who you really are inside.
And your needs that needed to be met at the highest level of having certainty had some masculine characteristics, not traits, characteristics that we would adopt in the moment to make certain that for your children and for yourself, that there was safety and that there was security and opportunity.
Definitely.
And that does not diminish your femininity one iota. In fact, it only enhances it. The challenge that's become now with people's perceptions of authenticity and congruency is that the only time we can start to say, oh, like, and I just heard this today from someone, they said, going back to the earlier couple I was mentioning, her response was, well, you don't get me because 60% of me is very masculine. And I was like going, wow, that's an interesting judgment call to make.
Mhm.
Is that an observation? Because you choose to be who you are. And anything, to your point, if I'm not worthy, anything we put after I am becomes our self-talk and our programming.
100%. Just like we said last week, identity.
That's it. Jim Quick says it the best. I mean, he's like, anything you put after I am. So if I'm not worthy, I am not fulfilled. How are you going to find fulfillment? You've already kind of just shut the door. And so it's like, are you just going to live in existence then? And unfortunately, this is what's happening a lot. And people's authenticity has become watered down.
Yeah.
In fact, they've lowered their standards. So let's look at it. Let's test the theory for a moment. People go, oh, in the last 5 years, higher standard of living or lower standard of living? And I go, well, after COVID, they're like, oh my gosh, it feels like it's lower.
Well,
Why?
people gave up because people gave up. People, right. Yeah, I remember when COVID happened and we were like, okay, 1 month of lockdown, 2 months lockdown, 3 months lockdown. After 3 months, people was like, this is the new norm. And I'm like, the new norm. And then we come out and we have to wear masks everywhere.
Yes.
They're forcing vaccines down people's, I would say throat, but I guess arms, right? And it's like, this is it. This is the new norm, this new norm. And I said, hold tight, hold tight. This will too be a phase because, there's things in the works. And where are we at now? The only place I know I have to wear a mask, at least in North Carolina, is in doctor's offices.
Right.
Even that is fluent at this point.
And in Texas, you don't need to wear a mask in a doctor's office because I didn't wear one to my chiropractor today.
And in Florida, you don't. And, I just got to Vegas and there's no masks anywhere right now. So it's just depending on where you're going. So did we succumb to a new norm? Yes, we lowered the standards of, that's what we did. We succumbed to, oh, this is me. I think of Eeyore.
Yep.
I think of Eeyore. Oh, woe is me, Pooh Bear. It's another blustery day. And that's how people began,
Yep.
you
Are you
know?
going to be Eeyore or Tigger? Yeah.
Right.
And so part of that is that where focus goes, energy flows. So as we've discussed many times before, standards are set and they're meant to be lived up to. It's an aspirational compass, if you will, and it has gravity to it. Why? Because when these standards are set, there's energy when they're done in the right state. And so this is where, when we start talking about how to get into authenticity, how to move away from self-doubt, slow down.
Yes. Take a breath.
Oh, reset and get back into you. And if you're finding yourself low energy, quick breathing technique. Box breathing is to actually get you centered, connect your vagus nerve so you slow down. This breathing technique is 2 sharp breaths in through your sinus passage. So it's this actually will increase nitric oxide, which carries more oxygen to your bloodstream, and it does something else. It's like taking a shot of ginseng. It will elevate you and help get you centered. When you exhale, so inhale increases your heart rate, exhale drastically slows your heart rate. So what it does, it helps you reset your emotional center. It's kind of like for those people that do EFT and tapping and different things like that, it actually centers you, but internally.
Well, and I just want to bring, you know, focus also back to whatever you say you are, I am, your mind is going to do whatever it can to stay congruent to that.
Yes.
So it's like a magnet, if you
It's the
would.
strongest need you have in the human personality.
It
Is
is, and
remaining consistent with your identity.
it will just pull you. It'll pull you like a magnet. So
Yes.
number one, it goes back to the last 2 shows that Chuck and I have done. It's number one, are you doing or being? You have to remember that yes, we have to do a lot.
Yeah,
Hands down,
absolutely.
we have to do a lot in our life. And we also have to be. Second, like we talked about last week, what's your identity? What hat do you need to wear at what time? And what are you going to do to stay congruent with that in that moment?
Absolutely.
And be who you are and stop looking at everyone else's expectations for who you need to be. It's time to self evaluate. It's time to take ownership. It's time to learn to like you for
Yes.
you. And you watch other people start to like you too, because they're going to probably see someone they haven't met in a long, long time.
You know, it's interesting you say that. The thing that you do most often during the course of a day is breathe in your heartbeats, and you do it unconsciously without even thinking about it. You have complete unconscious competence in these areas of your life.
Yep.
So, what does that tell you? That the things that you need most actually come from that core of you that you didn't even elect, select, or choose to run the entire operating system. Now that you know this hack, that anything that you say after I am. So, what if you ask yourself this question? If you knew you couldn't fail and you knew that there was nothing that could ever go wrong, who would you decide to be today? How would you decide to feel? And start asking and telling yourself, I am grateful. I am happy. I am full. I am filled with opportunity. I am amazing. I'm a blessing. I'm guided.
And I would add one more question to that once you have that is if I had no excuses,
Mm,
if I had no more excuses, who could I be?
absolutely. Wow.
We're so busy. Oh, I want to be a writer, but I don't have a book title. How am I going to write a book? Who's going to publish it? What if no one buys it? All of these excuses stop us from writing the book. All you have to do is start writing and you're an author.
Yeah.
You
Like
know,
Nike says, just do it.
do it. Yes.
Just do
Because
it.
take out every excuse you can make today and wake up tomorrow and be who you can be.
Live now. Yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. Live now. This is your moment. So decide congruency and authenticity. My sister,
Absolutely.
You're amazing. I'm so blessed to be in this forum with you, and it's just remarkable. Thank you so much for just sharing your love, light, and happiness with all of us. And we're moving forward. And remember, y'all, this show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check us out for all news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Blessings to you all.